My brother's wife accused me of harming her pregnancy after I refused my guest room, but her medical records exposed the truth. Oh, believe me, there are some betrayals that cut so deep, they threaten to unravel everything you thought you knew about family. For me, that betrayal came from my own sister-in-law, and it involved a lie so shocking, it nearly destroyed my brother and tore our entire family apart. Let me take you back a bit. My older brother, Daniel, has always been my absolute rock. We grew up incredibly close, especially after our parents divorced when we were kids. He's the kind of person who always has a solution, the kind of brother who, even if we don't talk every day, I know will be there when I need him. So, when he married Lauren 3 years ago, I genuinely tried to get along with her. Not because I felt an instant connection, honestly, I never did, but because she was his wife. That made her family. But something about Lauren always felt off. It's hard to explain. At first, she never did anything openly malicious. Instead, it was these little things, passive-aggressive comments disguised as jokes, sideways glances when I said something she didn't like, and this air of superiority she tried to mask with a fake smile. I ignored it, gave her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe we just had different communication styles. Besides, Daniel was happy, and that's what truly mattered. But things slowly started to change. After their first wedding anniversary, Lauren stopped pretending to be cordial. Her true colors began to show. Her tone towards me became colder, more condescending. She made me feel like an outsider in their own home, always finding a way to minimize anything I said or did. Still, I tried to keep the peace. I didn't want to cause problems between her and Daniel, so I kept my distance, limiting our interactions to family gatherings. Which brings me to a few weeks ago, when Lauren made a request that absolutely stunned me. She called me on a Sunday afternoon, which was already unusual. We never talked on the phone. When I picked up, she was surprisingly friendly, almost overly cheerful. Immediate red flag. After the usual greetings, she dropped the bombshell. She wanted to use my guest room for the entire duration of her pregnancy. According to her, she was expecting her first child, and due to previous complications, her doctor had recommended she rest in a calm, stress-free environment. My house, in a quiet suburban area, was, of course, the perfect place. I explained, as politely as I could, that it just wasn't possible. My guest room isn't just an empty space, it's my home office. Even if I wanted to help, I couldn't completely reorganize my life for 9 months. Lauren did not take it well. There was an awkward silence, and when she finally responded, her tone was completely different. She accused me of being insensitive, of not caring about her baby's well-being, of being selfish for refusing to help during such an important time in her life. I tried to explain again that it wasn't about a lack of empathy, but she wasn't listening. She hung up abruptly. A few minutes later, I received a message from Daniel. He said he understood my position but asked if I could reconsider for the family. My heart shattered. I replied that I was sorry this was causing tension, but my decision was final. I honestly thought that would be the end of it, that Lauren would simply find another solution. But oh, how wrong I was. This was only the beginning. In the following days, the rumors started spreading like wildfire. Apparently, Lauren was telling our relatives that I was being deliberately cruel and didn't care about her high-risk pregnancy. She even implied that my refusal to give up my guest room was affecting her health. Suddenly, I started receiving texts from my mother and aunt telling me I should be more understanding and that these things aren't forgotten in the family. Meanwhile, my cousin Ryan called to tell me to ignore everyone because it was obvious Lauren was exaggerating. But by then, the damage was done. The narrative that I was sabotaging her was spreading fast, and I had no idea how to stop it. Worse yet, Daniel started to distance himself. He never said it outright, but it was clear Lauren was turning him against me. One night, he sent me a message saying that if anything happened to the baby, he'd never forgive himself for not doing everything possible to ensure Lauren was safe. I felt utterly betrayed. This was my brother, my lifelong companion, and now he was doubting me because of his wife's lies? Until then, I had tried to stay calm, tried to avoid making things worse. But something inside me snapped. I was not going to let Lauren destroy my relationship with my brother or continue to tarnish my name. Something about this whole situation just didn't make sense, and if no one else was going to defend me, then I would defend myself. It's been several weeks since that phone call that started this whole disaster, and honestly, things have only gotten worse. I've been trying to go on with my life, focusing on work, trying to ignore Lauren's drama. But it's impossible. Every single day, there seems to be a new accusation, another cruel remark. I'm starting to feel like the villain in some twisted soap opera. Lauren has escalated her campaign against me. She's not just bad-mouthing me to our family, but also to mutual friends and acquaintances. The other day, one of my mother's friends actually called to advise me to stop being selfish because a baby is at stake. I was speechless. How can someone be this manipulative? Family gatherings have become unbearable. During a recent dinner at my parents' house, Lauren made sure to mention me at every opportunity. She started by saying she was exhausted because some people don't understand what it means to have a complicated pregnancy. She added that despite trying to stay positive, stress was taking a toll on her health. Everyone knew she was talking about me, but no one said a word. I felt like I was on trial, silently judged. Daniel, on the other hand, is clearly torn. I can see it on his face every time we talk. Part of him doesn't want to believe I'm the person Lauren is making me out to be, but at the same time, he's being worn down by his wife's constant complaints. Recently, he sent me a long, confusing message, essentially asking me to make peace with Lauren for the sake of family harmony. When I replied that I didn't understand why I was the one who had to give in, he left my message unread. We haven't spoken since. But the absolute worst part happened a few days ago. In what I believe was a deliberate attempt to humiliate me, Lauren showed up at my parents' house while I was there and began recounting, in excruciating detail, everything her doctors had supposedly told her about her high-risk pregnancy. She claimed that stress was raising her blood pressure and that the baby was in danger if she didn't find a way to relax. Then, looking straight into my eyes, she added, "But of course, some people just don't care about these things." My blood was boiling. I don't know how I managed to stay calm, but I knew reacting aggressively would only give her more ammunition. Instead, I forced a fake smile and acted as if her words didn't affect me. My mother, however, didn't help. She looked at me with disapproval, then turned to Lauren and said, "I wish we could do more for you." More, as if I wasn't the victim here. To make things even stranger, one of my friends who works at the same hospital where Lauren is supposedly receiving treatment told me something odd. According to her, there was no mention of stress as a primary cause of complications in any of the medical records for pregnant patients. This left me both intrigued and deeply skeptical. I didn't want to believe that someone would lie about something as serious as a pregnancy, but with Lauren, I just wasn't sure of anything anymore. I felt trapped. With each passing day, Lauren seemed to gain more ground, and I lost what little credibility I had left. My mother and aunt, who have always been important figures in my life, were clearly on Lauren's side. My cousin Ryan, my only consistent support, told me to be patient and let the truth come out on its own. But what truth? If I didn't act soon, Lauren was going to destroy my relationship with Daniel and completely obliterate my reputation. I started considering drastic measures. I didn't know exactly what yet, but I needed a way to prove that I wasn't the horrible person Lauren was portraying me to be. And if there was something truly suspicious going on, I would not hesitate to expose it. For now, I was watching and waiting, but I promised myself I would not sit back for much longer. It's been 3 weeks since things started spiraling out of control, and in that time, everything has escalated. Before, Lauren was just spreading rumors to ruin my reputation. Now, it seems like she's turned it into a personal mission. Her ability to manipulate people and twist the narrative is both impressive and infuriating. And the worst part? While she gains more allies, I feel more isolated with each passing day. However, this past week has given me reasons to believe that things may not be as they seem. The most recent incident started with a phone call from my mother, something that has become a regular occurrence lately. This time, she woke me up early on a Saturday morning, her voice trembling with concern. Lauren had supposedly had a health scare related to her pregnancy. According to my mother, Lauren had felt dizzy and had trouble breathing the night before, leading Daniel to rush her to the hospital. The doctors, my mother said, managed to stabilize her but made it clear she was at high risk if she didn't reduce her stress levels immediately. And you know what that means, right? My mother said, in a tone I recognized all too well, accusatory, expectant. I knew exactly where this conversation was headed, but I let her continue. It means she needs peace, calm, and you could provide that. That was the final straw. After weeks of being attacked and slandered, hearing those words from my own mother was a low blow. I clenched my jaw and responded as calmly as I could. Mom, I understand your concern, but I still don't see why this is my fault. I'm not against Lauren or her pregnancy, I just said I can't give up my room. That shouldn't be a crime. She didn't want to hear it. Before hanging up, she left me with one final stab. I just hope you won't regret this if something terrible happens. After the call, I sat on my bed for what felt like an eternity, trying to process everything. Yes, I was furious. But beneath the anger, a small doubt began to creep in. What if I was wrong? What if, by standing my ground, I was actually putting an innocent life at risk? But something didn't add up. This entire situation, the way every conversation, every family gathering revolved around Lauren's pregnancy and my supposed role as the villain, made no sense. Why was she working so hard to paint me as the bad guy instead of focusing on her own health and the baby? That same day, as I tried to make sense of it all, I received a message that left me stunned. It was from Sarah, my close friend who worked as a nurse at the hospital where Lauren had supposedly been taken. Hey, I don't know if this is relevant, but I checked last night's records. Lauren was here, but something doesn't add up. What she's describing as pregnancy complications doesn't match what I saw in her medical report. Of course, I can't tell you more, it would be unethical, but I think you should pay attention. A chill ran down my spine. What did she mean by that? Was Lauren not as sick as she claimed? Or worse, was she exaggerating, or even faking everything? My mind raced with possibilities, each one more outrageous than the last. At first, I felt guilty for even considering that someone could lie about something as serious as a pregnancy. But then I remembered all the inconsistencies, all the things Lauren had said that never quite made sense. For example, why did she always speak vaguely about her doctors, never mentioning names or specific diagnoses? Why did her symptoms change depending on who she was talking to? That was the moment I decided I had had enough. I had tried to keep the peace. I had ignored her accusations. I had endured weeks of being the target of her smear campaign. But now, with this new information, with Sarah's hint, I felt I had real reasons to suspect that something much bigger was going on. I decided I needed professional help, someone who could uncover the truth without me having to get directly involved. That same day, I searched for a private investigator. I found Richard, a man experienced in family cases with a reputation for being extremely discreet. When I explained the situation, he wasn't surprised, as if he'd heard similar cases before. He told me that these things take time, but he would do everything possible to find inconsistencies or proof that could clear my name. I gave him all the information I had, the dates Lauren claimed to have had complications, the vague names of the doctors she mentioned, and even details about the family gatherings where she made her accusations. Richard assured me he would start working immediately. In the meantime, I tried to act as if nothing was happening, but it was difficult. Every family gathering felt like a public trial, with Lauren finding new ways to make me look bad. During a recent dinner, she once again brought up how hard her pregnancy had been and how some people simply don't understand the importance of support. As expected, my mother immediately agreed with her. I, on the other hand, stayed silent. There was no point in fighting back, not when I hoped to have the evidence soon that would finally end this farce. Still, I couldn't shake my anxiety. What if I was wrong? What if Lauren was actually telling the truth, and this was all just a huge misunderstanding? But my instincts kept telling me otherwise. There were too many things that didn't add up, too many unanswered questions. For now, all I could do was wait. Richard promised me a preliminary report in the coming days, and I was crossing my fingers that he would find something to help me understand what was really happening. If Lauren was lying, I swear, I would not stop until I exposed her. But if I was wrong? Well, I would have to face the consequences. Either way, I I was not giving up. It's been 2 months since I decided to hire Richard, the private investigator, and what he uncovered not only confirmed my suspicions but also left me completely speechless. I never imagined things would reach this level of manipulation and deception. What started as a family dispute over a guest room has turned into something worthy of an investigative show. Now, I have in my hands the kind of proof that could change everything. Over these past weeks, I've done my best to stay calm and act normal, but it's been difficult. Lauren hasn't stopped her passive-aggressive attacks at family gatherings, and my relationship with Daniel is practically shattered. He barely speaks to me, and when he does, his tone is distant and cold, something I've never experienced from him before. It hurts deeply because Daniel has always been my biggest supporter, but now it seems like Daniel has chosen to believe Lauren's lies. A few weeks ago, during a family dinner at my parents' house, Lauren arrived late as usual, making sure everyone noticed her entrance. She sat at the head of the table, resting a hand on her stomach, which, by the way, still looked just as flat as it had 3 months ago, and started talking about how difficult her pregnancy had been. According to her, the doctors were increasingly worried about her health, but thanks to her strength and the family's prayers, she was holding on. What really caught me off guard was when she looked straight at me and said, "Sometimes, the people we least expect can be the ones who hurt us the most. But I have faith that everything will turn out fine." My mother, as always, comforted her, while my father looked uncomfortable but said nothing. I took a deep breath and stayed silent because I knew I would soon have the truth on my side. And that truth arrived a week later. The revelation. Richard called me on a Friday morning. His voice was calm, but carried a hint of disbelief. "You need to see this in person." We met at a cafe where he handed me an envelope filled with documents and photographs. First, the medical reports. According to Richard, Lauren had indeed visited the hospital on the date she claimed, but not for pregnancy complications. In fact, the medical records showed she had never been pregnant at all. Her visits were for minor symptoms like dizziness and headaches, which doctors attributed to stress or, in some cases, dehydration. There was no mention of a pregnancy anywhere in the reports. Then came the photographs. Richard had followed Lauren for a week and discovered that, far from being on strict bed rest as she claimed, she spent most of her time at a rented art studio, working on her projects. In one of the pictures, she was even seen carrying heavy boxes, something no one with a high-risk pregnancy, or even a normal pregnancy, would do. But the most shocking piece of evidence was the final puzzle piece, an audio recording. Richard had managed to obtain a recording of Lauren talking to a friend at the art studio. In it, Lauren admitted that the entire pregnancy was a lie. A manipulation. To control Daniel and the rest of the family. Her real goal? To get me to give up my guest room, not because she needed it to rest, but because she wanted to turn it into her personal art space. "It's perfect," she said in the recording. "The natural light, the space, it's exactly what I need for my projects. And if I have to fake a pregnancy to get it, then so be it. Daniel's family is so easy to manipulate." Hearing those words felt like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over me. On one hand, I felt a wave of relief. I finally had concrete proof that I was not the horrible person Lauren had painted me to be. But on the other hand, I felt an indescribable rage. How could someone be so calculating, so cruel? Lauren had not only played with my family's emotions, but had also destroyed my relationship with my brother, and completely ruined my reputation. I spent the entire weekend analyzing the information, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, but I knew that wouldn't be enough. Lauren had manipulated my entire family, and I wanted to make sure everyone knew the truth, to leave her nowhere to hide. I decided to organize a family meeting at my parents' house. I convinced my mother that we needed to talk, that I was concerned about Lauren's health and wanted to ease the tension. It wasn't easy, but she agreed. The meeting was set for the following Sunday. Until then, all I could do was wait and prepare. In the meantime, I didn't tell anyone what I had discovered. Not even my cousin Ryan, who had been my only ally. I wanted everyone to hear it at the same time. I didn't want to give Lauren a chance to twist the narrative before the truth was revealed. Sunday was just around the corner, and honestly, I couldn't wait to see how Lauren would try to justify what she had done. If she thought she could play with me and walk away unscathed, she was about to get the shock of her life. Sunday arrived, bringing with it a storm of emotions I could barely contain: nerves, bottled up anger, and a burning desire to clear my name. The family gathering at my parents' house was set to be the stage where everything would finally come to light. I had spent days preparing every single detail, making sure nothing was left out. This time, there would be no room for Lauren to distort the truth. From early morning, the atmosphere in the house was tense. My mother looked visibly uncomfortable, likely believing this would just be another confrontation between Lauren and me. My father, though more reserved, had an inquisitive look in his eyes. Family members arrived gradually: aunts, cousins, and of course, Lauren and Daniel. She walked in with her usual air of superiority, resting a hand on her stomach, which, again, looked as flat as ever, and wearing an expression of false vulnerability. Daniel, on the other hand, seemed utterly exhausted, as if he was fed up with all the drama but still determined to stand by his wife. Once everyone was present, I took a deep breath and stood up. I could feel my heart pounding, but I knew I couldn't hesitate. I looked at each person in the room and began speaking with a calmness I didn't even know I possessed. Thank you all for coming today. I know the past few weeks have been difficult, and I want you to know that it was never my intention to create tension in the family. But I also believe it is time to clear things up. There is something very important you all need to hear. The silence in the room was heavy. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, some expectant, others clearly skeptical. But what I noticed most was Lauren's gaze. For just a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes, as if she knew what was coming. For weeks, I have been accused of not caring about Lauren's well-being and her so-called high-risk pregnancy. My refusal to give up my guest room had been used as proof that I was selfish and cruel. I had tried to stay calm, but I could not just stand by while my name was being dragged through the mud. So, I did my own investigation. And what I discovered was something none of them expected. I placed Richard's documents, photos, and the transcript of the recording on the coffee table. Then, looking straight at Lauren, I said, "Everything Lauren has said about her pregnancy is a lie. She was never pregnant." The room exploded. My mother gasped. My father frowned in confusion. My aunts whispered among themselves. Lauren tried to cut me off, raising her voice, but I didn't let her. "Here are the hospital reports from the dates Lauren claimed to have complications," I continued, holding up the papers. There was never a pregnancy. Her visits were for minor issues like dehydration and dizziness. There is no record of prenatal care. I watched as Lauren's confident expression crumbled. "I also hired a private investigator," I went on. "Here are photos of Lauren working at an art studio, carrying heavy boxes, something no one with a high-risk pregnancy would do." Then, with a click, I played the recording. Lauren's own words filled the air: "If I have to fake a pregnancy to get the room, then so be it. Daniel's family is so easy to manipulate." My mother covered her mouth in shock. Ryan, my cousin, slammed his fist on the table in rage. Silence filled the room. Daniel slowly stood up, his face filled with disbelief and a raw, burning anger. "Is this true, Lauren?" His voice was shaking. "Did you lie to all of us?" Lauren stuttered, scrambling for an excuse, but there was nowhere left to hide. Finally, she stood up, pointed at me, and yelled, "This is all your fault. You have always wanted to ruin me." But this time, no one defended her. Not even my mother, who had supported her from the beginning, stood up and said, "How could you do something so horrible? You made us believe we were going to have a grandchild. You lied to all of us." Without another word, Lauren stormed out of the house, leaving Daniel behind, stunned, broken. He didn't say anything, he just sat there, staring at nothing, while the rest of the family tried to process what had just happened. The gathering ended soon after. Many of my relatives approached me, apologizing for doubting me. My mother, in tears, hugged me tight. "I don't know how we can fix this, but I am so sorry, my daughter." For the first time in months, I felt some relief. The truth was finally out, and Lauren could no longer manipulate anyone. But I knew this was only the beginning. The consequences of her actions were about to catch up with her. It's been 6 months since that explosive family gathering, and while exposing the truth brought an immense sense of relief, it was by no means the end of the drama. What happened afterward was a series of consequences Lauren never saw coming. She vanished completely. No calls, no family events, just avoiding everyone. Daniel stayed at my parents' house for a few days, trying to process everything. We had several tough, but incredibly necessary, conversations. He was devastated, not just angry at Lauren, but struggling with the crushing realization that the woman he had chosen to spend his life with had deceived him so cruelly. One night, as we sat on the porch, he finally looked at me, his eyes full of regret, and said, "I am so sorry. I don't know how I could have believed her. I guess I just wanted to think she would never do something like this. But now I see how blind I was. You didn't deserve any of this." It was bittersweet. I was relieved he finally understood, but I knew our relationship would take time to heal. I told him I didn't need a perfect apology, just his effort to rebuild our bond. He promised to make things right, and since then, we've been working on it. The trust isn't fully restored, but at least it's a start. Meanwhile, Lauren didn't stay silent for long. After weeks of disappearing, she tried to shift the narrative. First, she claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that she never actually said she was pregnant, only that the doctors had been unclear. When that failed, she changed her story again, blaming emotional distress and pressure for her actions. She even had the audacity to message my mother, asking for understanding, claiming she was also a victim. But my mother, once her biggest supporter, simply replied, "Do not ever contact me again." From that moment, the entire family cut ties with Lauren. My parents made it clear she was no longer welcome, and my cousins and aunts followed suit. No one wanted anything to do with Lauren after her lies were exposed. But the hardest blow came when Daniel decided to end their marriage. The divorce was quick and relatively simple since they had no children or shared assets. Still, Lauren didn't leave without a fight. She tried to paint Daniel as the villain, claiming his lack of emotional support had pushed her to act as she did. But with the entire family backing him and the undeniable evidence I had gathered, her lies didn't hold up. In the end, the divorce was settled in Daniel's favor, and Lauren walked away with nothing. I also took my own steps. After consulting with Ryan, my lawyer cousin, I sent Lauren a formal letter demanding a public apology for her false accusations. The message was clear: if she refused, I would take legal action for defamation. Knowing she had no way to win, she agreed. Her apology came in the form of a cold, insincere email sent to the whole family, clearly just an attempt to comply with my demand without actually admitting fault. But I didn't need her words. My victory was in exposing the truth and restoring my reputation. That email marked the last contact I ever had with Lauren. Life slowly returned to normal, though the scandal left its mark. Our family felt closer than before. The tension between my mother and me eased, and for the first time, we had an open, honest relationship. In a recent conversation, she admitted, "I was wrong to doubt you. I never should have taken sides without understanding the situation." As for Daniel, he's still recovering emotionally, but he's taking time to reflect and focus on himself. I've reminded him that he shouldn't carry guilt. Lauren was a master manipulator, and anyone could have fallen for her lies. As for me, I'm at peace. These past 6 months have been a challenge, but they've taught me an important lesson. Sometimes, you have to stand up for yourself, even when the world seems against you. I also learned that while family conflicts can be painful, the truth always finds a way to surface. Lauren tried to destroy me, but in the end, she was caught in her own web of lies. Now, I look toward the future, knowing I did the right thing. And while I have no desire to ever hear from Lauren again, I can't help but wonder, somewhere out there, she must be regretting underestimating the one person who decided to fight back.